Well, like a lot of kids, when Barbara Arrowsmith-Young was a child, she struggled to read and write and do basic maths. But she also couldn't tie her shoelaces or follow conversations. And she didn't learn to tell the time until she was 26 years old. That was until neuroplasticity changed her life. Barbara is the woman who changed her brain, and she's here to tell us how she did it. Nice to see you, Barbara.
It's a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you.
So you say that you had these severe learning disabilities and they were so severe and frustrating for you that it almost pushed you to take your own life.
Yes, well, that was in grade 8 because elementary school was such a struggle. I could not imagine how I could handle high school. But at that point, because of my learning difficulty, I didn't really understand what you did. So obviously I wasn't successful, and I'm very grateful that I wasn't. But I mean, no child should feel that much despair that they don't see a future for themselves. And that was my experience. And certainly when I meet students around the world, is their experience. And it doesn't need to be that way because we know our brain can change, and we know we can stimulate it, and we can strengthen these weak areas and overcome learning difficulties.
Can you explain what neuroplasticity is? Is it an operation that you had?
No, it's a really actually quite a simple concept with a complicated word, but it's the idea that through activity or exercise or stimulation, our brain changes physiologically. We grow new dendrites, we grow new neurons, we increase glia cells, we increase neurotransmitters. So through stimulation, I mean, we hear about Sudoku and crossword puzzles, and even physical exercise actually is healthy for your brain, and it changes your brain in positive ways. So I've created a series of exercises to strengthen areas that aren't working for students with learning difficulties, so by the end of it, they don't have the learning difficulty.
You mentioned repetitive, you know, just over and over. And I can remember as a kid, that's how they taught us, you know, maths, arithmetic, but also spelling. And so I don't see them doing that in schools now.
That's accurate, and I think, you know, there's probably been a cost to that because we're not working our brain. And we've made things easy, like sound bites, right, where, you know, everything's pre-digested, so we're not pushing the brain to kind of develop and grow. But we know we can, and that's, you know, I'm here in Australia. I've visited, we have 19 schools in Australia that are offering the program, and I've had an opportunity to go into classrooms and meet students that couldn't read, couldn't write, couldn't remember, couldn't think, and now they can.
And they're probably getting labels and
they get lazy
medication suggestions when brain training is something that can happen. So you've developed a program of exercises to retrain the brain. So this 60-minute story shows some kids doing exercises on a clock. Can you explain what's going on here? How does it work?
Sure. So the idea is it's not about telling time, but it's forcing the brain to process relationships. So this is, you know, how you have insight, aha, you know, things come together, you grasp concepts. This is the part of the brain that does that. So the idea is we're trying to force the brain to do things that it isn't doing well, that are really hard for it. And we start at a simple level, 2-hand clocks. We go up to 10-handed clocks.
Wow.
And at that point, you're processing 10 relationships simultaneously. Yes, an astrophysicist looked at that and he got it, but nobody else does.
Wow. And so you run this program, people pay for it, obviously, or parents, the kids pay for it. What is the hard evidence? Because neuroplasticity is very exciting stuff, but we're still just finding out about it. Is there really hard scientific evidence to show that this works, or will it only work on some kids and not others? Or?
There's really good evidence. In the last about 3-4 years, we've been working with researchers in Canada, the United States, in Madrid, in Spain, in Estonia. There was also just a research study coming out of Cambridge 2 weeks ago showing the differences in the brains of students with learning difficulties, that they're underconnected, and the research on my work, because we're now looking into the brain, is showing those underconnected areas are starting to connect and strengthen. So there's really good research.
You can actually measure before and after.
We are measuring before and after.
What, the actual brain?
The actual brain. So the connections are strengthening in the salience network, the executive control network, the attention network. Huge changes in the brain. And we're looking at cognitive outcomes, so processing speed, cognitive efficiency, working memory, auditory processing. We have several universities that are researching this and showing those changes.
Is that all the kids who go through the program experience some change?
Yes.
Or does some...
Yes, and they're different degrees. That's what we're seeing. Is there, you know, some move more quickly than others, but...
Have you had some that have achieved something extraordinary?
Yes, well, there's one individual that had the prefrontal cortex, so his parents called him lazy, he was drifting, going nowhere. We worked on that area. He came second in the world designing a racing car for Michelin.
Wow.
Yes.
That's a successful turnaround.
Yes. No longer lazy.
So it works on old brains and young brains,
Yes.
or better on young kids?
No, we're seeing there's plasticity across the lifespan.
Right.
The oldest person I've worked with was 81, and they made the same progress as a 12-year-old. So I'm
Wow,
getting older.
that's
It's really
fantastic.
exciting. Yes.
Yes.
Brilliant.
Yes.
You must be thrilled, and to be sitting here talking the way you are with somebody that started off with learning, you must be very proud of yourself.
I am, but there's so much more to do to help other children that are struggling. So.
Well, the updated edition of Barbara's book, The Woman Who Changed Her Brain, is out now, and she's doing a series of talks while she's here. Go to arrowsmithschool.org for all the details. Barbara, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Up next...